Well, let me welcome you to the conversation segment of the Signature Show. Now, last week, Wednesday, the National Orientation Agency launched their second strategic plan. In other words, their work plan for the next 5 years. For me, that's a little bit audacious in the sense of the issues I'm going to raise this afternoon. So my guest this afternoon is the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Dr. Abari. Dr. Abari, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Njoku. Good afternoon.
I used a word that the launch of the strategic 5-year work plan is audacious. Why am I saying so?
Well, if you call it audacious, yes. Some call it bold and courageous. We are taking our work plan to the public domain for a broad spectrum of stakeholders to engage with, to interrogate, to criticize, to make input, all with a view to farming it up and make the work of the National Orientation Agency, especially at a time like this, more responsive to the needs and more responsive to the challenges of the moment.
Let me take from what the representative or the vice president said at the launch. Two things. He said that the battle is for the heart and soul of Nigeria. And he said, some people seem to be losing faith in the Nigerian project, Nigerian enterprise. Let me also quote you. You did say that there were challenges, including the failure of the political class to play by the rules. You also acknowledged that some people are being separatists in their disposition. Are you conscious that at the end of it all, this document you are making available to the public, you will be judged by it to what extent you have delivered? If you are conscious, are you confident that you redeem at the end of the day?
The whole idea of unveiling the document is to say to the public that this is what I pledge to do.
You pledge.
This is what I pledge to do. But in this pledge, I also want you to enrich this pledge. And with the sincerity with which we are now unveiling it, we would say, at the end of the day, judge us by what we have presented. This is the idea.
That's the idea.
This is the idea.
But
and I want to be
good.
held
Good.
and be judged by what is contained therein.
Great. Doc, people say Nigeria's challenges are like a supertanker, and it requires a laborious and time-consuming effort to turn this supertanker around. Today, within the Nigerian political terrain, people come to office by undermining the rules. They're in the office. People come to positions by currying favor. They're there. People are losing faith in those leadership that didn't come there by merit. How are you going to be able to turn this supertanker?
Well, a very loaded question, a very, very loaded question, Mr. Njoku, but I want to take it from two perspectives. There is first the institutional responsibility And by institutional responsibility, I mean the responsibility of institutions that are charged principally with the responsibility for leadership recruitment. There is, on the other hand, societal responsibility. The responsibility of me and you and she and he and them and we. Now, at the institutional level of responsibility, only yesterday, the National Orientation Agency held a round table with all the political parties in the country. I want to say all, even though not all attended. I want to say all, even though not all attended. But the idea was to bring all, including the leading opposition and the ruling parties, to come together and have a dialogue on first how to address the fundamental challenges that we find ourselves or that are confronting our politics and our political processes. The issue of how to define the democratic space, expand its frontiers, institute a leadership recruitment mechanism that is credible and can throw up credible representatives at different levels of responsibility, mobilize the citizenry, and by extension, every other person and every other player, institutional and human players, towards a democratic process that engenders free, fair, credible election, will bring about a leadership that is responsive, responsible, transparent, and accountable, and a citizenry that will be up and doing and will learn to hold their respective leaders at different levels to account. Now, if this is what, for example, we need to do or to start in an attempt to turn around the supertanker, I think this is a modest starting point. And we think we can do that. But it does not stop only at the level of the round table. Because if it is a round table that holds in Abuja and it does not cascade to the states and to the local governments and to the communities, perhaps it is not deep enough. But we are worried. I am personally worried. As the head of an orientation agency, I am worried. So there is the personal and the institutional worries that we have a political process that is not inclusive, a political culture that is in place, which perhaps to all practical purposes is a rogue culture, and political players that don't play by the rules. And that is why it is becoming very difficult to sieve out political thuggery, political violence, electoral malpractice, and what have you from our larger electoral processes. Why? Political parties through which leaders are recruited up till now have not cultivated the essence and the much needed tenets and the principles of internal democracy. And where there are no entrenched internal democratic processes among major political players, especially as stakeholders, especially the political parties. To that same extent, will there be no truly democratic process of arriving at a credible leadership?
Dr. Abari, I'm looking at page 10 of this document that details the vision and the mission and the core values towards which we are working. I just want a little education here. The vision says a Nigeria governed properly with active citizen participation. Is it a new synthesis or a subsisting mission from the old times? Did you just synthesize it?
In addition to what is
What was?
In addition to what was. And therefore, it is a statement that is forward-looking.
And your mission is to mobilize, enlighten, and reorientate citizens to participate in governance and development with positive values. And you detail the values: democracy, religious tolerance, patriotism, integrity, peaceful coexistence. 5 of them.
Yeah.
Incidentally, with all due respect, Doc, these are what are lacking within today's Nigerian polity. Will I be correct? These core values, they are what we're seeking to establish, which are lacking.
I don't want to say all of them are lacking. Recent studies seem to suggest that 70% of Nigerians, 70%, and this is great, that is A, believe they are Nigerians. 70% believe they are Nigerians. Perhaps the remaining 30% believe they are something else, but at the end of it, they end up saying they are Nigerians. But in terms of their prioritization, there is 1, 2, and then Nigeria. But 70% say Nigeria first. It tells you that there is something actually amiss in what we are communicating. That's one. There is what among the 5 that you now talked about? Self-reliance, patriotism, yes. Where 70% feel they are Nigerians, others feel they are Nigerians, but they are not Nigerians enough because Nigeria has not done so much for them as to make them
Feel fully Nigerian.
Fully Nigerian. And we don't blame them, because the reality of the situation dictates that response. A university student that finishes the university after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years and has no job, and has no skill, and has no opportunity, and has.
And therefore has no future.
Therefore has no future.
You're asking to be patriotic.
So, what do we do as a collective to address this issue?
Doc, I'm coming to that. One of the core issues I've pointed out here is the matter of integrity. 30% prevaricate. They don't know whether they're Nigerians. They don't know whether what they are. The other things first. A young man looks at his senator who got there because some thugs helped him to point a gun at the head of an INEC official. But he's there today as a senator calling the shots. A young man looks at a governor who campaigned to him on the platform of one party, and he followed him and voted for him, and the next morning he jumped ship. A young man looks at his lecturer who passed somebody is better than because that person made an offer different from merit. Doc, what do you expect him to do? What do you want him to believe in?
I talked of a rock culture. And this is a manifestation of it. And this is a manifestation of it. But then it has not always been the case with us. It has not always been the case with Nigeria. At what particular point did we therefore miss the bus? Are we seeing this as a symptom of a disease, or it is the disease itself? Is it the symptoms we are seeing, or is it the real thing? What is it that we must begin to interrogate to explain this current reality? We have first the nature of the environment, which has changed dramatically. We have to understand the change in the social setup, the internet culture, the internet era, which also has a commensurate impact on the collapse that we see in our values, traditional and cultural, which also impacts on the kind of values that we used to know as family values, which we used to carry to the school, and which the school also added, and which we in our molding, in the molding of the character and the character and the behavior of the child until he reaches adulthood, and which that same family values, peer group socialization processes, primary and secondary socialization processes that the child must have undergone and which we carry to the larger society. All of these have been eaten into, impacted into negatively, and therefore have all
complicated everything. Doc, you know one question I wanted to raise in the course of the launch. We've identified a number of challenges. You're an intellectual. You have your intellectual community. Are you interrogating the cause of the present ailment? Because in identifying the cause, we would have solved the problem halfway. If we keep focusing on this, the thuggery in our Nigerian politics, the absence of integrity, the loss of faith, and which you are now trying to rebuild. Have you asked, you and your colleagues in the intellectual community, have you looked at it? Let us establish the foundation of this problem. What is causing this? Have you identified that?
Yeah, but I've already identified the collapse in values.
No, what caused the collapse?
Yeah, because I also have spoken to you about the changing nature of the environment. But then, look at the issue of integrity that you have just mentioned now. And look at the way we as citizens respond to the conduct and the behavior of our leaders. And how we respond to various levels of governance. At the national level, Buhari has done this, Buhari has done that, the budget is this, the budget is that, the minister has done this, the minister has done that. Tell me one individual, one governor in this country that is being subjected to the same kind of criticism that the press, that when Onochia's case was brought about as a nominee of Mr. President to the INEC, see the hue, see the cry, see the role that the civil society and the other different segments of the society had brought in until when the president had to back down on that. Tell me a single governor that will make an appointment in this country and the citizens of the state will rise up against that and that will make him change. Just tell me one, or a local government chairman. So we have democracy at the national level. We have absolute dictatorship at the subnational levels. Now, so these incongruences are all what aggregate and cumulatively impact on the issue of fight to entrench integrity in government and in governance.
Dr. Abari, please, let me ask you, what level of collaboration are you expecting or are you getting presently from other agencies? And let me tell you why I'm asking you that question. When we make this bad behavior costly by sanctioning it, it will become progressively unattractive to some venturesome young men, the new entrants, the police, the DSS, agencies of state that sanction bad behavior. What level of cooperation and collaboration are you having with them so that you don't work in vain? Because after preachment and that bad action is still paying those who acted badly, and there's no deterrent sanction, new entrants will come in because it pays and nothing happens.
We are not lacking in the requisite laws. We are not. We are not lacking in the requisite laws.
Yeah, but what of
we are not lacking in
enforcement
sanctions
and collaboration?
We are not lacking in the laws. Actually, that punish infractions. What we are lacking is the political will to impose the sanctions on infractions. And the reason is simple. Because impunity has been allowed to persist over the years. Gradually, it is getting more and more seated comfortably.
To become a culture.
To become a culture. So, the responsibility of an orientation agency is like that of a pastor or an imam, to continuously be reminding people about the harshness of hell and the beauty of paradise. We all know what we need to do to go to hell, and we all know what we need to do to go to heaven. Whether you are a Christian or a Muslim. But a pastor is there on the pulpit and will continuously be reminding you about the virtues of good behavior, of being godly, of the virtues of godliness, the imam will be there to remind you consistently. Every day we hear this, every day we hear this. Some will hear through the left ear and it goes through the right. Some will hear from the right and goes through. But then, as they keep hearing every day, if it goes through the right ear before it passes to the left, it stays halfway in the middle until when it gets settled fully. This is what the job and orientation agency is. Consistently reminding us about this and this and this, the essence, the beauty of togetherness, of love for neighbor, of love for country, of the opportunities that abound in this country, of the fact that this country is so an accident, irrespective of anybody that will tell you about the mistake of 2014. There is no mistake. Long before 1914, there has been Nigeria, even if it is so in the way and manner we call it today. So this country is not actually an accident of history or whatever, you know. So the beauty of togetherness, the beauty of harnessing in our various respective barriers and respective opportunities that abound in the land, the beauty in our mosaic cultures, you know, tradition, diversified dressing and the cuisine, and the environment, and the weather, and the climate conditions, and the beauty that lies in our numbers, in our ingenuities as Nigerians, in our entrepreneurial spirit, in our neighbor-say-die spirit. This is what we keep doing. But we also need people to come and support this narrative.
Dr. Abari, that honestly brings me to my last two questions. But first, what is the level of buy-in of the government into this, your vision and your mission, and the task you have at hand? What is the level of buy-in? And when I say government, I don't just mean the executive. I include the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, because there need to be total buy-in into what you are doing. If not, there are too many stumps along the way.
I don't want to be categorical in how to respond on this, but I think if you talk of government, I refer to it in the sense of government in its totality. Government in its totality. What is the buy-in of how much of a buy-in of this totality into the strategy document? There is no one that will read the strategy document and will not be in agreement with it. No one. No one.
Thereafter, after agreeing?
No, after agreeing, now becomes another bottle of fish altogether. But I want to believe that after agreeing, there will be conscious, deliberate, calculated attempts to actualize it. Because we need it now more than we ever needed it in the past. This is my take on that.
Dr. Abari, you're optimistic that they could buy into it. But one of the participants at the launch said something he took from a street saying. Soup was sweet, na money kill 'em. I've diligently been going through this. I'll still keep studying it because we'll raise other issues subsequently. You need money to do this. You need funding to do this. I heard you speak to stakeholders, agencies of government, collaborators, NGOs, development partners. But the head is the Nigerian government. That you and I have agreed ought to buy into this, and you said if they read it, they will agree. We have not resolved what they will do next. How are you going to fund this and make us not just see it as an intellectual exercise that does not produce something?
So many sources of how to go about it.
I'm talking about the money.
First, I want to agree with you that we need funding and sufficient funding to do this. But mind you, it has not lost out on us. And we are only one agency of government. And the government has so many competing agencies. And it has so many competing priorities. So, the idea, first, of putting in place such a policy document or a strategy document is for government to say, or for government in its totality to see that the job of the orientation agency goes far beyond the development of jingles on television and the radio and the site for billboards and what have you. But that it has a job that is big, humongous, and therefore will require more than what it is being given at the moment to execute. So, Gamma will look at this. And we feel whoever wants to support will know that at whatever level you are putting what they say, your money where your mouth is. That's one. We have donor agencies that we invited to have a look at this. Some of the issues that have been brought into the strategy document directly relate to what donor agencies are doing. Directly relate to what donor agencies are doing. We are not saying that they are channeling the funds to the wrong hands or into the wrong hands, but we are saying, but perhaps more cost effectively, some of these funds can come this way. But before you get convinced that you could deploy these resources cost effectively, have a look at what we intend to do with it. You may not even have to give us the money direct, but looking at this, you will say, yes, we are going to key into this, we are going to key into that. Now, the organized private sector has a role. A society that is peaceful is an added advantage to the private sector, because where there is no peace, there will be no market. Where there will be no market, where there is no market, it will make no sense for any manufacturer to produce. And therefore, a peaceful, quiet a society with high level of integrity is definitely a society that every investor would wish to invest into. So, there are actually so many platforms, but government is key.
Well, government is the key. Investors, I said it last Sunday in our 10-minute opinion, that when society is peaceful, the private sector blossoms. We're repeating that line this Sunday. A super tanker, are we going to turn it around? Dr. Abari says, yes, we can. And let me concur, yes, we can. My guest in the past 40 minutes has been Dr. Abari, the Director General of the National Orientation Agency. As always, touching the raw nerves in our polity and how to soothe them and create a happier society, where maybe one of these days I invite him out for a ballroom dance, maybe you dance kalangu or dance highlight music, because society is calmer, is happier. Doc, when I invite you, I hope you come.
I will.
Which of them want to dance, high life or kalangu?
Swangi.
Swangi. Well, the conversation never ends. My name remains Bobo Senjako. Can we meet next Sunday? Good afternoon.